Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And look at this. Where is James Aza? Wearing a black t-shirt. So, black t-shirt is James. I cannot fill his boots. I can maybe fill his shirt. We'll save the paisley for next week, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our show. As usual, let's have a quick disclaimer and some housekeeping items. All opinions on this show are our own and don't represent any organization that we might be affiliated with. And who's this on the show with us? It's Lynn Marler. So welcome, Lynn, to the show.
Thank you.
Let me do a couple of clicks here. Just want to get rid of one thing. There we are. And we'll get into the comments. And we are live streaming. Beautiful. So we have a special guest because James is attending a wedding in Israel. And if you know anything about Israeli weddings, that's a hell of a party.
Yeah, 3 days, right? Something like that.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It goes on and on. I'd even attend an Israeli wedding if I didn't know the bride and groom. It'd be so much fun. So here we are, and we are streaming with Lynn Marler talking about crypto, talking about blockchain. Lynn's got some expertise. She's become a dear friend over the years. So, Lynn, why don't you give us the quick time of 20, 30 seconds on who you are? Who's Lynn Marler?
Okay, well, 20, 30 seconds. I'm a recovering banker, is my definition. I spent 30 years in traditional, institutional banking. My last gig was at Bank of New York Mellon, pretty, stiff, solid organization, but very risk averse. In 2018, I took a course at Oxford called a blockchain strategy course. And I took it because my clients were asking me about blockchain and I didn't know what it was. And I took that course. It was run by Oxford professors and MIT professors. And all I can say is I got hooked at that point. I just started getting deeper and deeper. I now am part of an organization called Boston Blockchain. I'm the events manager. We have events every other week. I'm part of FinTech Women. We do a lot of work with blockchain. I get called on crazy stuff all the time. Crypto whales, what do we do? So that's what I do. I have my own company now and kind of do whatever I want to in terms of learning more every day about this industry.
All right, brilliant. Now I'm kind of double screening here because for some reason I'm not seeing any comments, Lynn. I know we're live, but I don't know if we're streaming because I don't see any audience members. So there might be a technical challenge, which I will deal with at the same time as when you're talking. So let's continue with the broadcast.
Okay.
And then I'll figure out what's happening here. Actually, I see a little exclamation next to, yes, I see that we are actually having trouble on LinkedIn. So I just got a little note from LinkedIn saying we're having trouble posting to LinkedIn. There might be a problem with LinkedIn. We'll keep trying. But wait 60 seconds. Okay, so we'll see what happens there on the account. I see that, okay, I've got a few people coming in now, so we know a few things are happening. Matt, welcome. Thank you so much. I suppose I am having to join right here. Oh, really, Matt? So you're not seeing it on LinkedIn? That might be my problem. I can see you on YouTube is what Matt is saying, so thank you very much for dialing back into YouTube. I know that last week we actually had some challenges on LinkedIn as well where we couldn't pull comments in. And there's a little kind of like, one of those exclamation points. I'm using James's LinkedIn profile. So, he's saying, LinkedIn is down. Okay, LinkedIn. So
like what Cyber Matt said, he said, blockchain will change the world. And I am, yes. Cyber Matt Lee, I am all for it.
And I'm pleased it's not a user error. It normally is with technology. It's a LinkedIn error. Okay. Yeah, exactly. It's going to change the world. And Matt, let's give us your opinions, man. Because, here we are. Lynn has been coaching me on blockchain for the last couple of years, kind of on and off in this regard. And I'm getting deeper and deeper. I almost kind of know nothing. I'll tell you my quick story, Lynn. So you might not know this, and for the crowd's benefit. So maybe 10 years ago, which was missing the boat still on crypto and Bitcoin, a few friends and I got together. We all threw in $500 each, nothing. Bought a bunch of servers to put in a friend's basement. They've been churning ever since. So for a decade, we got one coin. But that's the best investment I've made in my life. $500 and I've got one coin. And what are you at? 37,000? And there's like maybe 10 of us that threw in $500. Good investment.
Not a bad investment.
It's a great return. I just wish that we'd have really got a few more servers churning. Matt's saying, I believe in a world with public blockchain holding private chains. And then maybe you know what that means. Those being able to persist forever, but be cryptographically shredded at the private side. Lynn? What do you think?
Yeah. Okay. So, there is I mean, I think you're absolutely right. The public blockchains are, we, uh, they're great, but you have to be very careful. And clearly you definitely need your own, private keys, but there are there's a lot of concern about it. This is really uncharted territory. And I think that, you have to be extremely careful, and that's the hard part. I mean, if you send a crypto across blockchain universe, there's no getting it back there, and there are no rules, right, as of today. So the you know I see where you're saying a public blockchain could hold the private keys or private chains, but I think we have to be a little bit careful. You have to think about what the context is. There are some companies that hold like private keys, right? So Coinbase would do that. Others like Robinhood and who else does it? You can also hold your own. So I think, it depends on the value that you are creating. Like if it's $500, maybe you don't care. If it's 5 million, maybe you care. So there's a lot of things that I think you have to think about, as opposed to there are companies who would hold your private keys or private chains or whatever.
And what does Matt mean by "and it is immutable"? I've never even heard of this.
Immutable. So it can't be changed.
Immutable?
Yeah. So the way I look at it is, if I sold you my house and I said it's $100,000 for my house, and you tried to sell it to someone else for 5 million, they know you paid 100,000. And if I was buying it for 5 million, I'd want to know, what did you put into this house to make the value change so much?
But I think
that's just one example.
I think that's fantastic, though, right? I mean, this is where Bitcoin's cool. I like that. It's kind of interesting. We should talk a little bit about the Jamie Dimon versus the golden guy that you were mentioning earlier in our preamble. But it's the contract stuff that's really interesting to me. Now, Matt was saying here, other than 50% attacks, I can't quite remember the sentence that was touching there, Matt. Right. But then he goes on to say, and changes to the house would be in the chain. Exactly. That's right. Yes. I find that fascinating and fantastic. And a comment a little earlier, Matt, I'm speaking of non-ICO and monetary, more in the business space, private contracts, data, etc. Right, not cryptocurrency. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So the ICO market really is, that was probably more in 2018. I mean, ironically enough, Bank of New York Mellon had an initial coin offering called BK Coin, and it really went nowhere. It was on the Ripple platform. They ended up scratching the whole thing because they gave out a couple of these BK coins, and people are like, what the heck is this thing? Worthless. And so that world has changed a lot. Now we're looking at this digital currency, like certainly the USDC, which, Circle and others have made a huge market in. It's growing every second, where it's really tokenizing a one-to-one relationship, the US dollar to a coin, a USD coin, as they call it. So I don't know if that helps. He said, yes, they did BK Coin. Yes. So about BK Coin.
I didn't hear that one. Yeah. Maybe people just didn't have a clue and they were jumping in, trying their things. It is interesting to me, though, why it is like, what was it? Doing Coin or Dog Coin?
Dogecoin?
Dogecoin, yeah.
Well, see, now we're getting into territory that I personally, I guess I could state the way I look at some of the things about the blockchain world is I kind of look at it in three ways. I look at Bitcoin; these are all my opinions, but I look at Bitcoin as more of a store of value, and it is like gold. And will we go buy stuff? Am I going to buy a boat from you with Bitcoin? Probably not. Maybe. I look at crypto or fiat-backed, central bank digital currencies, just like USDC, which is US dollar to dollar, but it's a coin, right? And remember, these are like they're kind of like your credit card, where I'm not giving you $30,000. I gave you a credit line of 30,000, right? You go use that credit card, and you're using up that 30 grand. So it's kind of like that. I mean, it's a digital coin. You don't have to carry it with you, but you do have to have some way to store it and exchange it, really, to see that value somewhere. So and then I look at Ether as to me, it's code. Ether is a smart contract. Smart contracts are written in Ether, and that's how I look at it. So I look at it 3 different ways. Hopefully and Dogecoin to me is a joke. I mean,
right. And luck of the draw. I've got some friends that made some money at it, but hey, luck of the draw, other people didn't. So I want to get into Ether at some point, hopefully a little bit later. But what Matt's saying here is now with no need for to track M123.
Yeah.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
Well, that just means that the money supply, the Federal Reserve, we when you go into blockchain world in the universe of a decentralized financial structure, there is no Fed. There's no Fed. So money supply is money supply that relates to, dollars in circulation. It also relates to the fact that, we've got trillions of dollars of new debt, which means a dollar 3 years ago, pre-COVID, was probably worth more than it is today. And you're seeing that every day when you go to the grocery store, right? But so that no longer exists in this democratized world.
Right.
There's no Fed that says, oh, this is how much money supply is out there. We know that Bitcoin has 21 million Bitcoin that are out there. That's it. There's a limited supply. That's why I look at it as a store of value.
So it's kind of like being back to gold again, backing a fiat currency, but the currency being backed on gold.
Well, so, the U.S. got out of backing their dollar with gold. All right. That was the Bretton Woods Agreement. Nixon decided we were not going to value our gold based on some commodity. Right. So now it's free floating. And so, listen, if I want to print, which is what we have been doing, necessary, but we've been printing money throughout this whole COVID experience, that currency gets devalued. The places where crypto becomes really attractive are places like Iran, or, you had Argentina, you have, where else? I'm drawing a blank, but where the currency gets devalued very quickly. You had $2 million in the bank and tomorrow you got 2,000. That happens when currencies or countries, have a coup or like the United States. I mean, I cannot see that our dollar is going to continue to be the world currency. In fact, we're seeing China beating us on several measures.
And Matt's chiming in here exactly with gold itself was more manipulable than blockchain, especially with hugely adapted blockchain. What does that mean, Lynn? Do you think?
I don't know what hugely adapted blockchain.
Jump in there again, Matt. Yeah, that's really interesting.
Hugely
Matt's
adapted.
a guy of many talents, man. I mean, he's cybersecurity, and here he is just jumping straight in on the blockchain and understanding crypto. So good for you, man. We actually had him on the show last week.
Oh, wow. He sounds really good. Lots of users. Okay. And so the other part about blockchain is there are lots of use cases for blockchain technology. I mean, you are taking out, and I don't mean to disrupt anybody, but it is disrupting everything that we've grown up with. If you bought my house, in my example, you would want someone to come in and say, does Lynn have the deed to that house? The title to that car or boat, how many square feet are in the house, what kind of land goes with the house, all of those characteristics that you had a lawyer or, someone authorizing the deed, changing the title, all those things to verify and authenticate that I actually could sell you this house no longer are needed. All right. The cryptographic technology, mathematical, perfection essentially does that.
I think it's brilliant. I'm so excited for that. And Matt's chiming in here saying, so no one user can overwhelm the chain's agree process. Exactly. Or set of users. And then goes on to say, yes, this is a paradigm shift we cannot avoid.
Well, and I love what he said about paradigm shift. And I don't know Cyber Matley if you've read the book, but Dan Topscott and I think his son Alex wrote a book called Blockchain Revolution. I heard Dan speak a couple years ago and actually absolutely blew my mind. Having spent a couple years already, I heard him speak probably 4 years ago. It's a fantastic book called Blockchain Revolution. I highly recommend it as even just starting out, kind of seeing what it has the potential to impact. It's almost hard to get your arms around.
Must be a ferocious reader because now it's on the list. It'll probably be downloaded and read by next week's session.
And there's another great book. If you want to learn about Ethereum, this woman, Camilla Russo, wrote a book called The Infinite Machine. And it's how an army of crypto hackers is building the next internet with the Ethereum. And it's a great book. It's really a history of how Ethereum started and whatever. Very interesting. And then if you're a chick, you can belong to Crypto Chicks, which is Vitalik Buterin, who is the founder of Ethereum. His mother in Canada started this group called Crypto Chicks. And
too bad LinkedIn's down, because we normally have Danielle Goodwin on the call. Okay. So she'll be jumping in all over this. I'm sure she'll listen to the archive. Yeah. Now, Matt, this is really interesting. This is on the early beta version of Ethereum. How did you get into that, Matt? That's really interesting, man. I'd love to know. Saying that smart contracts for the win.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is what's exciting. But that book you just mentioned by that the female author there, New Internet. Well, that's interesting. So
the next internet. The next
internet. Building an internet based on blockchain. Have I understood that correctly?
Well, I think the way I look at it is, to me, is this is how I think about it, is if I had told you, certainly when I was going to college, that instead of picking up the phone or writing me a letter or something like that, calling me to talk to me, that you would go, on a computer and send you a presentation or reach out to you, hey, how you doing? Through an email thing. I mean, think about it. When I was in college, that wasn't really, it was just maybe was starting. I mean, we had these clunker phones, right? They were as big as, you just think about the evolution of, so many people refer to it as sort of the next chapter of the internet, because it is all, in this internet type world, right? It's in a cyber world, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
So
yeah, we talk a lot on this show about the First Amendment, typically, of course, because of big tech censorship. I wonder how blockchain might be able to help us with that. I mean, there's a ledger. Can it be that? And maybe this is not a good thing. I don't know. I seem to think it might be at the outset. But can the ledger show a history of things that politicians, let's say, so that it can't be kind of obfuscated and pushed down by media? It's like always there. I mean,
well, I think the thing that is driving, in my opinion, a lot of, there are a lot of things that are driving this change, this paradigm shift. And one of the things, well, first, the financial crisis, that everybody lost trust in the financial institutions, which were the trusted, right? You put your money in a bank, period. Robinhood, Reddit, never, right?
Right.
That was trust. That disintegrated. You look at the trust, you look at the internet and the fact that we now have instantaneous everything. The media, we find out, lies. The media, I mean, it's interesting. I have a friend who was in Lebanon, and, I have never seen a picture of Lebanon without bombs, right? Bombing everywhere, okay? My friend sends me a picture. I said, are you in Paris? And this gorgeous street, he's sipping coffee. And he said, you never see this picture. And I said, I've never, ever seen a picture on TV. So the media distorts a lot of stuff to their advantage, or they maybe not distort, but they don't show you the whole thing. So we've lost trust in our politicians, in our media, and no one, we're looking for the truth and we can't find it. And look at the vaccine. I mean, I don't know if you're anti-vaxxer. I don't know. But I mean, I know dear friends of mine, brilliant people, will not get vaccinated. They think there's a blue chip being injected into them, and they are going to be dead in 2 years.
It get worse. This is what I saw the other day that a friend of mine showed me, is that people are getting magnets after they've been vaccinated. And they're like, oh, see, there's a chip in there because the magnet's sticking.
Oh, Jesus.
I mean, I shouldn't say these people. There's three of us here right now in this case, right? And people watching the archive, which will most likely be like, yeah, really interesting, right? So Matt's saying, and the changes that direct messaging made to our world, think about what that's going to do in the blockchain, right? Things we could never have imagined. Now, let's get to this comment. If you combined blockchain entry with permanent identity, it would mean every mouse click on a piece of data could exist in hashes in the blockchain. Scary. But I do see some, You know what? It's a funny world, isn't it? Because you see the advantages, and but you know that people could use it for ill intent. That's
but everything can be used to ill intent, right? I mean, every single thing can be used for good or bad. I think that the opportunity to do better exists with this. I mean, you look at, there are 2 billion unbanked people in the world, not because they don't have assets, because, as an example, my bank said, where'd your money come from? You don't have a proper address here. You don't have this, you don't have that. So they won't open a bank account for you. That doesn't mean, I mean, I know people who can't get a bank account in the United States, but they have enough wealth to have a bank account.
Why can't they have a bank account?
Well, first you have to have a U.S. legal address, and then you have to prove. If you say, I got 10 million, 10,000, where did that come from?
Right.
If you don't have a job and you're in the United States and you have an address, where'd you get your money? So they want the source of your funds.
Yeah, that's right.
Drug cartel, arms, dealer. I mean, and in some cases, people might be able to prove, hey, my family was, in Liechtenstein and they're billionaires, and, when the country was overthrown or whatever. But those are few and far between. Sure. And even those people have a hard time proving that.
Right. Now, in putting that money into some kind of crypto, surely they would still have to prove that, or do we not care? I think we still care, don't we? No, we don't care.
We don't care, because you have what's called a wallet, and your wallet address I would equate to something like your bank account, right? But it's a wallet in yes, you're right about all this stuff comes from the Bank Secrecy Act and the Patriot Act, but and all the KYC that the banks do all comes from that whole process, and that was set up after 9/11, right? But you don't, and that's the beauty. Also frightening, but beautiful, in that if you say that you are a Bitcoin whale and you own 500 Bitcoin, and you give me a wallet address, you don't have to give me your name, but you have, Eddie at 4125, whatever your wallet address is, okay? I can go pseudonymously, check that wallet and say, I can go back and say, Eddie bought 100 Bitcoin 5 years ago, another 100, every year for the last 5 years, he's bought 100 Bitcoin. He actually has it to sell to me.
Right.
That will verify and authenticate. So that is part of the other beauty, is I don't have to go out there and find a way for me to I don't have to, get a bank account. I don't have to go and say, you got to prove all this to me. Can you sell me the house? Do you actually own the house? It's all in the code, essentially.
So Matt's showing us his cards here. He is in fact, where are we? Private banker in 2001. Okay, I thought you were just a Renaissance man, Matt. You are that too. And so yes, this person, you do. Lynn does know her stuff exactly.
Thank you. I've been working on it for a while, but it is very interesting stuff. And the private banking side, actually, that's a very interesting vehicle, because a lot of high net worth individuals come through the private banking side, right? So they could be a sheik, or they could be, the queen of whatever. And they face a lot of these bank secrecy, a lot of these know your customers. And to be honest with you, a lot of high net worth individuals, if they're from a foreign country, get a lot of scrutiny. I have a friend from Iran. She and her husband came here, and, she said, how come everything is like challenging for us? A bank account, they think we're, arms dealers,
Well, and that brings us back to what we were saying with, ill intent. So Matt had made a comment here that's, I think, a good one. I've been in cyber too long, so I see the evil, right? Yeah. It's like if you're a police officer for 30 years, you suspect all your kids' friends are smoking weed, right? This is just what you think. But Matt's making a good point here. It would be traceable ill intent. So yeah, exactly. Today it's just ghosts in the night. Yeah, you're right about that, Matt. That is beautiful. I mean, it's definitely a big brother thing that I'm kind of like scared. But at the same time, it's kind of like Elon Musk's Neuralink. He's saying that you will know people's intent because you'll essentially be able to read each other's. You'll be able to converse. It's not quite reading thoughts, but you'll be able to converse. And so when somebody trips up over a sentence that they're not allowed to say in today's sort of woke society, you'll know that did they have ill intent? If they didn't, it's just someone's tripping up. If they did, we know it. When it's in the blockchain, yeah, we have a history, and I'm confident enough that I'm a decent enough guy that fine, bring it on, right? Let's see that history. I think it's smart. Contracts, the history behind it. I'm just wondering how we take advantage of this, how we get ahead of this incredible thing that's happening. It's like this. When the dot-com boom was happening, I was still an English teacher. I don't want to miss this wave, right? I sort of feeling like that right now. So how do I, grab the surfboard and just hold on tight and get on this tsunami? That's kind of my question, so that I'm not late to the table.
Okay, so I, I guess, again, these are all my opinions, but I do think that for me personally, and not that I'm a big fan of Mark Cuban, but even when I started taking this class and getting involved in blockchain, the technology and everything, Bitcoin doesn't fit all the needs. Especially when you take it to business. Bitcoin is fine as a store of value, because if I said, Eddie, you have euros, or you have sterling, or you have Canadian dollars, and I want to give you Bitcoin for Canadian dollars. Well, that's just a dollar. There's nothing like I'm buying your house with the carpets and the dishwasher and the refrigerator. None of that detail. When you start talking about supply chain management, a company says, I'm buying 5 million shirts from Eddie from China, don't know from a hole in the ground, and 100 of those I want purple, green, pink, whatever. That's a supply chain thing that I need to know. This is what I bought. I need you to I need verification that process happens. And so, it's really hard to take Bitcoin and say, because there isn't a way to do that. Ethereum has the code to be able to write a smart contract that says, this is how this contract's written. No exchange of money until that thing gets opened here, and it is the 500 shirts with the 3 different colors or whatever.
Right.
That's part of it.
And exactly what Matt's chiming in saying, Bitcoin is contemporaneous exchange of value, smart contracts solve supply chain things. And then a little earlier saying, you said it best. The anonymous proof doesn't have to tell, or doesn't have to tell all who the identity is related to. So on the said crypto wallet. Right. I understand.
And I think the interesting thing, what's happening in blockchain, which I think, when you think about the financial world and when you think about contracts and all that, the interesting thing that is happening and why I think banks are really going to see a big demise is that in DeFi, which is this decentralized finance, and it is hard to get your arms around, especially a former banker, right? But it's the idea that there is no central authority. So in essence, I used to go, if I'm a company, I used to go and say, hey, I'm expecting $5 million receivable from Eddie. I'm going to sell that receivable because I need a loan over the weekend to pay my payroll. I mean, those are business problems, right? I don't have a bank anymore. I have, Lynn, my company, and, Eddie puts out on a blockchain message, hey, I got $5 million that I'm willing to lend over the weekend.
Wow.
Hey, I need that liquidity, Eddie. Wow. The fascinating stuff in my mind is that you are starting to see liquidity pools, collateral, all the things that the banks do in this decentralized world. Now, it's sort of quasi-decentralized because there are platforms. So the platform becomes the bank, the technology. And so everybody's vying for this little technology piece, their specialty. We had a speaker last week, a company called Hyperledger out of Australia. They have offices all over the world. They started their business by authenticating and verifying diamonds. Do you know that diamonds are they're mined, obviously, in Africa. They go to China now. I think it's 90-something% of all diamonds go to China to be cut, okay? And from that point on, the plethora of fakes, cubic zirconias.
Okay.
What this company, Hyperledger, was talking about is that it is almost even a grader, a jewelry grader who grades diamonds can look at a synthetic and often has a very difficult time telling the difference.
No
Very
kidding.
difficult.
Really?
So what they do is they authenticate. This came from this chunk came from this mine, and then they break it into, as it gets broken down, that goes with the sale to Tiffany's or whoever.
Well,
Really.
so Matt's jumping in saying, yes, here.
Hi,
Now,
you
really,
sold diamonds. Like, wait a minute.
Bought and sold diamonds for 2 years. Great guy. You'll connect after this on LinkedIn, I'm sure.
I can't believe it.
That's saying the Kimberley process, which is what regulates the diamond industry. Yeah. Okay. And CZ, what is that? Is less the issue, but lab created diamonds are getting identical.
Yes.
Wow. And that's the correlation is since they were starting to be cut in China, because let's just say it, right? China copies everything.
Yes.
Wow, really? Okay. And so, Matt's jumping in saying, bought and sold diamonds with 2 American diamond traders when Rappaport, was it Rappaport? Is that the name of a company, Lynn? I don't know that one. It was at 30%.
I don't know Rappaport.
Okay.
I don't know. What is that company?
Yeah, tell us, Matt. Jump in.
So were you in New York? You must have been doing that in the Diamond District. I have a friend who actually, he trades in colored diamonds. That's his specialty.
No kidding. Is that right? Yeah.
Astrophysicist by training. And yeah. Rap is the valuation guide. Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. The value. Okay, so that's the valuation guide. So coming back to this comment, then he's saying, I bought and sold diamonds with 2 American companies, traders, when the valuation guide was at 30%, and you were in South Florida and New York. Yeah, I mean, you probably have to be for playing in the diamond world. And colored are often faked with cobalt and other gases in treatment. Yeah. Armenian. So these are Armenian diamonds. Is that what you're saying there, Matt? Yeah, Armenian diamonds or Armenian gas treatment. Okay, so jump in and let us know there. Really? So, wow.
Who knew? That is fascinating.
Yeah.
I've been trying to get my friend who is in New York I've been trying to get into he invited me to see the diamonds that are the colored diamonds. And of course, they're very hard to authenticate. And they are, I think he might be Lebanese, I'm not sure, but they are very hard to authenticate. And they're often used to take money out of a country. So
you should go see the diamonds, though. If you've ever seen a handful of diamonds, it's kind of spectacular. It's kind of looking, if you've ever seen a brick of gold, it's a strange,
I've seen a brick of silver
thing for us humans. We like shiny stuff. And a brick of gold is the shiniest stuff. You look at that thing and you go, I want it. It's the strangest thing. Handful of diamonds, same thing, right? Blues are so pretty. Is that right? Really? Yeah. I just, I'll show my hand here. I got married pretty young back when I was an English teacher, and so I couldn't afford much. I sold my motorbike to buy my wife's engagement ring, right? And most dudes look at me like, really, you did that? It's like, yeah, but I keep reminding her of that for the last 25 years. So it was actually kind of a good move. And I remember that color scale you had, right? Of the completely yellow all the way to the most expensive. And then it kind of a third of the way in, it sort of switched over to completely to clear. And then the most... And I was just on the border of clear. The more expensive one. Yeah. But it's
the brown diamonds were called brownies. They were worthless, really, because there's a lot of magazines that I look at, and they have the brown diamonds like they're a big deal. I don't know which company. We used to call the brown diamonds brownies. They were worthless, but 11 chocolate diamonds, that's it. Chocolate diamonds. There's a company, you open up a Vogue magazine or, Bazaar magazine, and they have these chocolate colored diamonds, and they are pretty, but I didn't realize that they were.
Actually, that's interesting that you're saying that, Matt, because I remember on this scale, they were more brown. They weren't blues or any other colors. They were these sort of brown, darker brown ones all the way through till finally you got to light, but it was a cloudy light. That's the one I bought for my $1,000 motorbike that I sold.
Okay.
All the way to the other end. And you literally threw them in the trash, did you? Well, luckily, I didn't buy one of those, but I did buy
Do you have any left? Do you have any left? I want to know. I'll take a brown one. Sounds interesting. That's fascinating. And I mean, so there's an example of authenticating a diamond. Now, there are some flaws that, it's not a perfect system. It's like food, verifying food. IBM has a big food safety project, which I spoke with a woman about a few years ago, and they authenticate food. So, it's an example, if beef was from California or Mexico or whatever, that they can target who slaughtered it, when it was done, the time.
Really?
And they can also, and when it's put on a truck to go to somewhere, there are specific protocols. The temperature has to be certain temperature, has to be all of these requirements, and they can see if those were followed in a blockchain environment. And so IBM worked with, I think it was Walmart. One of the first projects that actually a guy I worked with got involved with. And I ended up speaking to the woman from IBM at a conference once. It was fascinating to learn about the food supply, because it took up until they started using blockchain. They couldn't, if you got sick from meat or something, right? They couldn't identify, like an Ebola breakout, right? It would take them 7 months to figure out, where the heck did you buy? Okay, we know we bought it at, X Whole Foods, but we don't know where it came from. Well, today that thing takes about 7 minutes now.
So this IBM thing with Walmart is through the blockchain.
Yes.
Really interesting. Look at Matt's comments. So now here's his security CISO hat coming back on, and Homeland Security for the USDA. And I didn't know this, but that's how they traced the Listeria infection from spinach.
Yes.
Wow.
Yep.
Talking of dodgy cows, I still can't donate blood in North America because of the year I was born and when mad cow's disease in England was a thing. So that's right. It's very interesting. Same in Canada. A British person who was born before, I think it was 83, and therefore ate potentially, and obviously I didn't, contaminated meat. They don't want my blood. Yeah, so I can't donate blood, isn't it? Lol on the dodgy
that
cows.
Is fascinating.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
Well, I don't know if you saw 60 Minutes. They did a spoof a couple weeks ago on the octogenarians who had Spanish flu in 1820 or whatever it was, right?
Okay.
Yes. And they found some of them. They still had the antibodies in their system against that Spanish flu. Yes.
Really? That is really
fascinating.
Interesting. Good for that. Well, I mean, look, we are the descendants of a more robust immune system because we survived the Black Plague, or at least our ancestors did. So we have that. But look at this interesting comment. Mad cow disease is how liquid dissolution of carcasses was born. I'm not exactly sure what that means, Matt. Please jump in again. But I do remember.
I know what a carcass is, and I know what dissolution.
I just moved to Canada at the time when mad cows was kind of breaking out. So this was like 93, something like that. And I went back actually to work as a gardener, Lynn. You and I were talking about this a little earlier, during one of my academic breaks. And that was when they were burning all these cow carcasses. It was actually a really awful moment for these farmers. Farmers were going insane. They were committing suicide.
Oh, God.
Really right for them. Well, you were around all that death. You had to literally execute all of these cows. Then you burnt the carcasses, and still the disease was in the ashes. They had to dig holes and bury the ashes. Oh, yeah. It was a massive problem. And then, of course, the European Union, it became very political with, exporting and importing and lots of punishment. Yeah, for the Brits there. So that was truly a big deal. Yes, lots of cows to get rid of. I
don't eat them, so.
Yeah, is that right? I'm a big beef guy. I love my cows. I was talking to a friend of mine in Israel today, as a matter of fact, because Israeli steaks are amazing.
Really?
You guys should be famous for hummus. Why is this steak so good? And he told me today, he said, all our beef that we eat is imported, mostly from South America, because they don't have enough milk. And so you can't slaughter cows in Israel because they need them for milk. Interesting, hey? Yeah. Matt's saying, makes sense. And he's going to throw up a link here.
For the mad cow?
For the liquid dissolution, I think. Of the cow.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
That's going to be fascinating.
One thing I did want to step back a little bit is say is, everybody thought that Bitcoin and crypto were, arms dealers and drug dealers and all that. And I would say in the very beginning, that was very true because remember, it had pseudonymity. So I could sell you, drugs on the black market and you paid me in this currency and no one, today, and this is a statistic I got from Caitlyn Long, who is spearheading all of the legislature out of Wyoming. Wyoming is becoming the most crypto-friendly state. She started a bank called Avanti Financial. She's brilliant, and if you're interested, you should be watching Caitlyn Long in this space. She's a lawyer by training, blah blah blah. But she, she researched and found that 2% of all sort of crypto transactions are actually fraudulent. And in fact, and another woman who's a commissioner at the SEC, they call her crypto mom, Hester Peirce, she also authenticated 2% transactions are fraudulent. But if you think about it, everybody who's doing drugs or arms, it's cash. Cash. That's, it's not the crypto. So what used to be the scary thing.
Well, it got a bad rap initially because, initially everybody jumped on them. It's kind of like this, grotesque but true. The people that perfected the streaming video technology for the internet, pornography, right? And so that's kind of what kicked it off. So that's all it was at the beginning, almost all. Now it's almost nothing, right? As far as percentage of the internet and what YouTube shows and all of that beautiful streaming. Same with crypto, it got it started. Remember the Silk Road? What was that?
That was huge. That was huge.
Aldridge, I think his last name was, right?
Yes,
he's
Aldridge
still in jail. They really threw the book at that boy.
Actually, that is another great book. You guys probably aren't interested, but I love this. It's a really good story, Women in Crypto. And she actually talks about that story. That's when she got involved, when it was Silk Road. She put money in, she lost everything. So it's an interesting story. About the Silk Road, and that was true. You're talking, Matt. You mentioned, can I steal pseudonymity? It's a good question. I really,
isn't it? Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I honestly don't know the answer because, it's sort of. I think. Just connect to Caitlyn Long. Well, I hope if she ever responds to you, let me know, because I've sent her several messages trying to get her to respond to me. But she's brilliant, so she's great to watch her post. You should follow her for sure. But the pseudonymity is very interesting because it's sort of like your bank account. Like if you were going to pay me, Eddie, to buy my house, I'd say wire the money. Here's my ABA bank number. And here's my account at that number. Well, you don't know that my name is Lynn Marley. You may not, today you would because of the deed, right? But you may not know that, but I give you a bank account. Well, the bank knows that ABA and that account number belong to me. So pseudonymity, somebody knows that wallet address, and if my wallet's at something like a Coinbase or something like that, or Gemini, they know that I'm the actual problem. My guess is they probably know that. They don't have to know that, but my guess is they have a good idea, especially if you're wealthy. So I don't know if you can steal. I mean, I guess you could steal just like a bank. I guess you could. I don't know. I'd like to find out more.
Well, I'm saying, and more importantly around pseudonymity, can I send attribution to that source to deflect from real me?
Yes, you can.
Wow, really interesting. Yeah. And agreed on nation-sanctioned wallet platform, as history has shown. You were going to mention something on the Silk Road kid who was in jail. Were you going to mention, or I think actually it was in her book, right? Is when you pulled that book out. Yeah.
She did a little thing on that. He actually, I think he died, but she talks about it.
Oh, the kid. Oh, really? That started Silk Road? Aldrich, I think his last name is. He was the Dread Pirate Roberts. Remember that? He had this pseudonym, the Dread Pirate Roberts.
Yeah.
And the Silk Road obviously was used heavily for nefarious purposes. But again, it sort of paves the way for a technology and a crowd acceptance of this new way of engaging in business.
Oh, for sure.
Lynn and I in the preamble were talking a little bit, because, obviously I'm in cyber, Matt, you're in cybersecurity, about the fact that, we saw these, I don't want to take a complete rabbit hole on ransomware and such like, but you just saw these massive attacks, triple extortion ransomware now. So I was chatting with Len before the show, just saying, with the triple, this is what we've just seen lately. So there was a Taiwanese, I think it was a semiconductor company, I'm not entirely sure, that went under a triple ransomware attack by Revil. Okay, so REvil or Revil, I'm not sure.
It's like REvil.
Right.
Yeah.
So they stole all the data first. Then they encrypted the data on the customer side, said, if you don't pay the ransom with a certain time frame, we are going to reveal the data. But also what they're now doing is they've actually created an exploit kit for this to create VoIP calling into the customers of that person. In this case, it was Apple computers. And they said, okay, Apple computers, we've stolen all this stuff. I don't know if it was chip designs. I don't know the exact details. Let's say it was a chip design. Let's say it was an upcoming, iPhone 14 design, whatever. They're saying, hey, we've stolen all this. Pay us and we won't reveal this thing because this semiconductor company isn't playing ball with us. Apple did. And then when the semiconductor company said, no, screw you, we're not going to pay the ransom, and then they revealed all of these truth, they withheld the stuff that Apple had paid them for. And, there's a sort of an honor amongst thieves. In this case, no, it's not the no honor amongst thieves. There's an honor amongst thieves in that, well, they are going to do what they say they're going to do. The Silk Road was sort of the same thing. It's, I give up my money in order to get weapons, drugs, whatever, prostitution, all these terrible things that are on this dark web. And if people don't honor it, they get a bad reputation. You can't do business with them. It's a crazy world. Let's get to what Matt's saying, because he knows this world in depth. But look at the NSA allegedly taking out all assets of DarkSide during the, I don't know about this one on DarkSide, during the exposing of their pseudonyms, and thus de-incentivizing or incentivizing these actors from reaching out. I think those days are toward an end. Yeah. I think they
seems like that.
Yeah, they certainly could be. Well, so coming back to blockchain again. So, I don't know enough about it, but I'm wondering how blockchain might be able to solve for the fact that these people might not be able to hide anymore. I don't know. It's a wallet address, so maybe they're always going to be able to hide. Can we tie the wallet address to your identity as a person and have it permanently tied there? Would that help stop the nefarious use?
Well, I think that there are, I've been on a, I hang out sometimes with a bunch of coders, and if they say, if I say, hey, I got a wallet address, Eddie1234, this guy claims he's got, 500 Bitcoin. Right on, while we're talking, they put on the screen, they go out and they find your wallet address and they say, yeah, this guy bought it. Yeah, he has it. They don't know your name, but the tax guy's coming after you. So there is a tax implication to selling Bitcoin immediately. So what happens is I have a Coinbase wallet, which, is a hosted wallet essentially, but they would go after Coinbase and say, you got to give us information on this person because she's paying taxes if she sold her Bitcoin. Now, I haven't sold any.
Interesting.
I just keep buying and holding, but I don't want to face that. There's one other guy that if you're really into this stuff, that's really good. His name is Andreas Antonopoulos. I think that's how you say it. He's out of the UK and he has a Bitcoin podcast. Quite often, he's very knowledgeable. He has a great quote that I love as a banker. He says, the existing banking system extracts enormous value from society, and it is parasitic in nature. And so, the words are really, he's been a Bitcoin aficionado for years. He's had this podcast for quite a while. I think he's very well known. There's a whole bunch of other guys. Pompiliano, he does a podcast.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, so what I was saying earlier, just about, how do we kind of, circumvent the nefarious activity? Great point, Matt. We can regulate the entry point of wallets. Wow, didn't think about that. So in nation state blockchains, for example, as IBM that you were talking about earlier, Coinbase exists because they decided to play ball with the US.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And Matt, you're definitely a Renaissance man. You're into all this stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And then a final comment here. It is parasitic in nature. That's right.
Yeah.
The banking, to your final comment you just made there.
Yeah.
Just need to make 10 more basis points on this deal, right? Always. That's right.
It's a there's a great saying in banking is, when you don't need money, we're willing to give you everything you want. But the minute you need money, and I've seen that in action. I had clients with the financial crisis, that were going to go under.
Yeah.
And, here we had 50-year relationships, the organization there. I don't know you. I mean, or some of the hedge funds who try to, they're
Sure.
I'm not saying anybody's good or bad. All I'm saying is that they tend to be parasitic in nature. They exclude a enormous amount of society. And then, even if they love you, if you need money, they don't often love you, and it's, the first experience I had at Bank of New York Mellon was the contract was always New York law.
Always what?
New York law. Okay. So typically when you're dealing with a company in any state in the United States, the contract says something like, hey, we prefer New York law because that's our lawyers. And you say, well, I'm in Illinois. Could we find a happy place, or could we negotiate? No
Really?
negotiation. New York lawyers.
Interesting. Yeah. I wonder if this is so I'm still, I love to say this. I say this all the time. I'm still on my honeymoon period in the US. I mean, I just love it. I've been back another 5 years now, having a blast. So I started reading that book that Lin-Manuel Miranda was inspired by, Hamilton, right, to write his play. I wonder, I say I'm reading it, it's on audio and I've got to do a lot of driving. So I'm not through it yet. So that's a doorstopper.
Yeah, it's a big thing.
But I wonder if that's what Hamilton was trying to set up, right? Because he was smart enough to know that, hang on, we defeated the Brits. We need to make friends with them, right? These guys have got some coin, and set up this system. And, but Matt's right. It's the only industry where balance sheets are reversed. Yes. Assets are debts. Isn't that interesting? Yes. And New York law is very friendly, as you were just saying there, Lynn. Yeah.
Well, and one of the things that I think is also driving this whole Bitcoin and this revolution, and I believe it is a revolution. I mean, it is completely shifting everything that I grew up with. I think one of the things that is changing it is that, if you deposited in my bank at $100,000, all right, that is, as Matt says, that's a credit on your book, right? That's okay. He's got 100,000. That money, I'm going out as the bank and lending that to 100 people, charging them all sorts of money, and I pay you less than 1%. I mean,
Yeah.
It's not a democracy.
With crypto, I can be the bank, right?
You are the bank. And so, I mean, the wonderful thing about this whole DeFi, and I've been working with a couple guys in London who have this company called Enreach, which they created this liquidity pool, which is absolutely unbelievably interesting. So if you have crypto or you have any currency that can be exchanged, like USDC, and I say, hey, I'm a company and I need either dollars or that dollar denominated coin for the weekend. I mean, that's what lending and liquidity is all about, is I'm borrowing from you, right? The banks make billions on this. And taking from one, giving it to somebody else, I make the money, I give you a little cha-ching there. But the fact of the matter is, now there's no bank. There's Eddie puts, hey, I got 5 million. I don't need it till Tuesday. Lynn, I need it to pay my payroll, but I am expecting an accounts receivable to come in for 5 million on Monday. I would negotiate a contract that says, hey, if I don't pay you back on Monday, you get my receivables Tuesday.
Right. And I can see that on your blockchain.
That's right.
It's verifiable. So here's the opportunity. And the opportunity lies in not being the bank that used to broker that transaction, but you still need, like, as an individual, let's say I have the 5 million bucks and you need it. How do I find you? So there has to be an intermediary that takes, a cent, right, for brokering the transaction, not brokering, but making you two shake hands.
Well, there's two things. One is called the platform. All right. So it's kind of like if you're a company that deals in government securities, you know that Bank of New York Mellon is a government securities dealer. All right. You want to buy a municipal bond, or you go there. That's who has it. So part of it is platforms, like, okay, this platform does diamonds. This platform does supply chain. This platform does food. Okay. I mean, so there are platforms. Those are the technology. But in addition to that, I lost my train of thought. But in addition to that, I mean, there are other ways to find it or to create it. It's called a market maker. So, like in a stock, all right, if I'm well connected, like say Bank of New York Mellon, let's say you're Duke Energy, just name came to my mind, and you want to issue a green bond because you want to say we're doing good for the universe and all that. I make a market in that. I say, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to peddle that. I create a market. Right. I go out and I call every person I know, right, who runs the treasury office of a company. I call Boeing. I call every Caterpillar, you name it. Hey, I know someone they're selling green bonds. You buying?
Right.
I create a market. It's just like a salesperson, right? I mean, I make a market in that. So the other part of this is I've been looking at this for an opportunity I'm working on is how do we create a market for this particular commodity? And, you have to have some expert. Somebody's got to have an understanding of how markets like that work and then have the connections. It's partly who you know, because you also, the bigger the dollar, the better the opportunity in many cases. So, I mean, if you're selling something, so it's the same thing. You need not only a platform, but you then need someone who makes a market in that thing, whether it's a liquidity pool or whatever.
The first time I learned this was actually The Big Short. Remember that book, The Big Short? They made the movie out of it? Yes. Because they had to make a market for the guy, Michael Berry, right, who was the first one to see it. To actually short, this. Now look at this. This is a Renaissance man, obviously.
Right.
Did his Series 7 a while back. Yeah, exactly. That's where I kind of picked up this kind of knowledge. Let's get to an earlier comment that Matt said, and then we're going to wrap the show in about 1 or 2 minutes. The issue really is that USDC. What's the DC in the USDC there?
US digital coin. So it's a
the
US
digital
dollar
currency,
digital
right?
Coin.
Is tied 1-to-1 to USD,
yes.
right? That means it will still be influenced by artificial manipulation of monetary supply. What a shame. In lessening degrees, but still destructive in nature. Yeah.
But that is true. Remember, so, if you are thinking about any fiat currency that is tied to a central government, that's going to be true. So if Iran decides to do a digital coin, or Lebanon, which, some of these countries are talking about, it's going to take the same kind of hit that the currency will. Yes, because it's a 1-to-1. But, it does allow countries to participate in this new thing. They don't have to print money anymore. I mean, think about the savings on that part of it. So you got your, like your credit card, right? I mean, you got your wallet.
Yeah.
And, in a sense, your bank account is nothing more than a debit or credit on a statement.
Right.
It's not really the money. So,
agreed. Universally true and true, right? Got thought about that. And getting back to his comment here, and let's wrap the show with this one. I mean, it just reminds me of the deal that you're cooking up here. You have to have verifiable transfer to those that it is green, like the carbon credits, and also what you said. Yeah.
How did you know I was talking carbon credits, Matt?
Because he's a smart boy, hey? Yeah.
Jeez, I thought I could get away with that one, but yes, so I was talking carbon credits, and that is a challenging thing to actually verify, and challenging to you have a knack. Okay. It's challenging. There are some companies out there that say, I'm going to do this thing, and Eddie can buy these carbon credits I have, and his company's going to look really good. Those are really not doing anything good. So there's a lot of verification that has to happen that doesn't happen. And the problem, there are a couple issues. The legislature doesn't exist, so the rules don't exist, and then there are also there's no clawback. So I sent you $1 million. Oops, I meant to send 100,000.
Ah, yeah, that's interesting. And Matt's saying often spoofed, and even many times over.
Yep.
Yeah, right. That's definitely going to be a challenge, isn't it? Huh.
So Matt, let's you did connect with me on LinkedIn. Thanks. I'd love to I'd love to chat. And in fact, I'd like to find out more about what you do. And The cyber is a big part of the crypto, I think. The whole,
Mhm.
I think the technology, now what's happening, which I think is always really interesting, is that when you work with these smart contracts, which I'm talking to this company about, you have to have an auditing firm to audit the code. So, on one hand, I'm saying, hey, if I buy your house, we don't need a lawyer, or I don't need to see the deed. It's all in the contract, right? Well, kind of, but if you write the code, then in order to verify that I didn't write the code that says, hey, every 5 cents I get 5 cents, or every dollar I'm going to take off 5 cents or something like that, you have to verify. You have to have a third party. There are auditing
auditors. The geeks rule the world. I mean, really, this is the opportunity.
It's not going away.
It's not going away. I remember years ago seeing this book that Bill Gates probably had a ghostwriter, right? And it was, it was directed to teenagers, and it was one of these top 10 things you should do to be successful in life from Bill Gates stories. And then facetiously, there was a number 11 because it was, top 10, work hard, whatever, right?
Sleep with the guy. Sleep with a couple people in your company. Sorry.
There's that too. And then the number 11 for a joke, you put, be nice to nerds. You'd end up working for one.
Right.
Well, Lynn, it looks like you got a new friend here. Absolutely. So he said, let's grab 30 minutes. Last comment, the code will be manipulated. Well, we're back to cybersecurity. Exactly. Yeah. So for the ladies and gentlemen watching this on the archive,
thank
LinkedIn
you.
Apparently had some problems. LinkedIn. I don't know if it's going to live on the LinkedIn archive. Certainly it will on James's Facebook and his YouTube account, which is where Matt's dialing in from. Hopefully we can just upload it to LinkedIn or something like that. We'll figure out all the kinks. Maybe it's LinkedIn's kinks. So James will be back next week with me. Lynn Marler, I'm so happy you joined us today. That was really wonderful.
Pleasure, and great questions, Matt. The diamond really got me, but I'm interested that fascinated. Very, very interesting discussion. Thanks for joining.
Matt,
thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Matt. Thanks for being a wonderful human being and jumping over to YouTube for us today. You've made our show. Lynn, thank you for joining us in James's stead. Next week, we will be back. Look for some updates on LinkedIn and all over the socials for James. He, of course, is broadcasting from whatever hour in Tel Aviv at the moment, and we'll all be back. In the meantime, be safe, everybody.
Great.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Eddie.
Bye.
Bye.